Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. We're at episode number 11 today, and I got a really cool guest today joining me for the podcast today. I got Somie Robles, and she's from the Live Life Pure. She is a holistic nutritionist and a health coach. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Well, Somie, I really appreciate you coming back on. I know you came on a podcast with a mutual friend of ours last year, and I wanted to let you know that a lot of things that you mentioned in that podcast, I have taken it to heart, and I definitely did make those changes. So I think that probably the biggest one was that the deodorant, the pit.
The pit paste.
Yeah, the pit paste. That stuff works pretty amazing. I got everyone who uses deodorant in my house now has their own stick. My 10-year-old, she loves it because I got her the creamsicle one.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I never have to remind her again with that stuff. That's one of the things, but that's definitely cool. But I was just wondered if you could just start off just telling us exactly what like a holistic nutritionist is and kind of what you do.
Sure. Well, a holistic nutritionist overall and health coach is somebody that helps people find their healthier selves, whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally. Mm-hmm. We guide them like coaches and help them figure out where some of their triggers are. Okay. I particularly focus on children and their ailments. And what got me to that niche market was the fact that both my kids were very sick as babies. Mm-hmm. And I was always told throughout the years that their asthma and their eczema and the chronic ear infections and bronchitis and pneumonia were pretty much hereditary because my husband had it as well as a child. And then when I realized after many years and many medications and many doctor's office visits and ER visits that maybe, just maybe, it was the stuff that I was feeding them.
Okay.
So I focus on helping families try to figure out what the triggers are, how to clean their foods up in their home and products to get them off medication and eating real foods.
Okay. Now, when you working with kids now, I mean, what are some of the common issues that you might be seeing with kids either today? Is it just sugar intake or is it processed foods?
Well, most of the families that find me or hire me have children with ADHD or ADD, asthma, eczema. I call them the culprit A's, autism. And every single one of these children, I ask the parents to do what's called a DNA hair test sample. Okay. And what this does is it's measuring frequency from these hair samples to see what their sensitivities are. Mm-hmm. And that kind of gives me an idea of what's lurking in their bodies. I am not a physician, so I can't go and ask for labs. A lot of these clients will go to their pediatricians and say, hey, I'm working with this holistic nutritionist, and can we go to an allergist? And they go get allergy tested. Okay. But that's a blood test, and it's testing allergens, and sensitivities are very different. They tend to not react right away. So it's long term that we're having these inflammation issues. So I, right off the bat, look at what's brewing inside the body. And every single child I have worked with has had multiple heavy metals inside their liver.
Really?
And every single one of them. And the one main metal that I'm dealing with is cadmium, copper, aluminum, and mercury. Okay. All the children that I've worked with have had vaccines. They've been on multiple medications, steroids, and so on. So that's where I try to help purge their bodies naturally to get rid of these heavy metals, because these cause inflammation and illnesses. Mm-hmm. And then I also have to educate the parents on things that I didn't know before I started, like what is really in their milk, what is really in their box of cereal, their school lunches. You know, unfortunately, marketing loves to put labels on our packaged foods, and they say healthy or organic, and that means nothing. because it could say healthy or clean or low fat, low sugar. It means nothing, because in all of these packaged foods, there's always something in there,
Right.
some hidden poison, as I call it, that's causing some form of inflammation or disruption in these children.
Okay. Now, when you say frequencies, can you be more specific on that? Like when I see frequencies, are you talking about energy? So like, I remember reading something where your foods, let's just say your organs, kind of work off megahertz in a sense. So you can eat a certain amount of food, like almonds are great and stuff like that. Is that what you is that what you're talking about when you say when you're testing frequencies with these DNA tests?
Yeah, so I guess most elementary way of explaining it is, they are looking at their frequencies, and when they have high frequencies of the foods that they're introducing to this DNA or this hair sample, that's what we know they have high sensitivities to.
Okay.
And they test for hundreds of items, and some of the craziest things pop up. But it gives us an idea of, okay, let's eliminate these items so that the body can get back into balance. Because I've never had anybody, even some of the healthiest people I know, even myself, when I completely went on a clean food binge eating, crazy. It just, I definitely went a little crazy when I learned all this stuff in school, and I still had stuff, growing inside my body as well. So you're really just kind of looking at, it may not necessarily be one thing. Let's say a child is allergic or sensitive to milk and sensitive to corn. Maybe they can have milk but not corn. So you combine these things, and this is where you end up having imbalance. Really? And it happens very slowly too. It's not something that you go and you have, let's say, kale one day, and then tomorrow you have the inflammation. This is built up. And this is what's happening in our children, is they are introduced to these foods at 4 to 6 months old, or formula, right off the bat, or they are creating sensitivities through breast milk. I mean, this is something that they're getting in vitro as well. Okay. And then once they're out in the real world and they start eating solids and packaged foods, this is, where we start building up the imbalances. Okay.
Now, the DNA test that you're talking about, how long does that usually take from the time that you mail that off? Is that like I'm assuming that's a mail type of...
Yeah. The lab that I use is actually in the UK.
Okay.
So you will download their info form. You answer about, 20 questions. And then you send up a hair sample in your own little plastic baggie with your intake form. I think the longest a test has ever taken was 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then they will email me back, or even the client, their results. And you get pages back. So you can test for sensitivities, you can test for heavy metals, and you can do both. So I always just recommend everybody do both.
Do both? Okay. Now, being in a culture that kind of wants everything done right away, I mean, once you get these tests back and you look it over and you kind of build a path of, what's wrong, assuming, let's just say the most common stuff, I mean, what are we looking at time-wise? Maybe that somebody can start seeing changes.
Everybody's different. There have been clients that they have seen changes as early as 3 weeks.
Really?
I can say with my own son, who had severe asthma and eczema, bronchitis, pneumonia, just upper respiratory infections. When I learned that his sensitivities were dairy, of all things, because he was never diagnosed with an allergy to dairy, within about 4 weeks, the asthma started to taper off and the eczema started to go away. And by week 6, it wasn't happening anymore. And then we completely cut out dairy for a year, just because I was terrified to have to go back to where we had started from. Right. And then after a year of really working on cleaning out his system, cleaning out his liver, because he had heavy metals in his liver as well, he hasn't had an asthma attack since.
Really?
So, yeah.
I could only imagine, because I think those are definitely the steps I would want to take with my family. And if I can already just see myself, just the anger that I would have to deal with once I kind of look at these results and get an understanding of what is actually going on. And because again, my son had chronic ear infections growing up as well. It's got so bad that, we did tubes in his ears at one time. And we were always told that once he gets older, and let's say like the ear canal gets a little larger, everything will start draining a little bit better. Yeah. But, that did work. But in the beginning, I would say that first year and a half, it felt like he was constantly on some form of antibiotic, just bouncing back and forth.
Yeah. Both my kids had it. My kids are almost 2.5 years apart. So when my daughter was 2, she was diagnosed with asthma, and she had probably 3 to 4 bouts of pneumonia a year. And then my son is born, and at 6 weeks old, he started with the postnasal drip.
Okay.
Just at 6 weeks old. And they said, just try to tough it out. But that postnasal drip caused a chronic cough. Mm-hmm. And at 6 months old, he was already on allergy medication.
Really?
And, what I didn't know was, of course, I'm going to give him medication because I wanted to help these symptoms go away. But I wasn't too sure what were in these medications that just caused another ailment.
Okay.
So in the particular brand of allergy medicine I was giving him, it had aspartame in it. And then on top of that, food coloring. Mm-hmm. And all of these things contribute to eczema.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's very frustrating because you think you're helping them, but it's like adding insult to injury.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about Live Life Pure then.
Well, I finished school about 3.5 years ago and didn't advertise anything, just started, actually, to rewind, my intention of going back to holistic nutrition school, was just to help my family. Okay. I had absolutely no intention of working with other families or teaching. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be selfish and just worry about my kids. I was just exhausted. We were medically, financially broke. We had medical bills at the wazoo. Both my kids had sinus surgeries. They were on multiple medications, and something told me, I don't know if it was mother's intuition or what, but something said, I'm hearing a lot about this organic thing. This organic thing is happening. Let me look into this. Why is this so important? I feed my kids healthy fruits and vegetables. We don't eat a lot of junk. But it just kept popping up. And one day I just opened up the laptop to send out an email, and this pop-up comes up for this nutrition school that I ended up eventually going to. Okay. So graduated, enjoyed it. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I felt a need to share this. I felt that it was, if somebody had told me just an ounce of what I had learned or what I had gone through, or just how to read labels, or, how to kind of not diagnose, but analyze what is going on in their homes with their children, right. Just to give insight, because yes, this information is all on the internet, but you don't know how to look for it. You don't know really how to find it. You don't know what to trust. Okay. There's so many conspiracies out there. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of negativity with, this whole holistic thing. Right. Is it really real? You've got to go to your doctor. They're going to be able to help you. They can, the FDA would never give you a medication that would make you sicker, all of this stuff. And so I really wanted to know the truth. And obviously it was working for me, because I waited a while before I started to coach other families, because I wanted to see if it really worked. And after about a year and a half, when my kids were doing much better and didn't need medication anymore and were not, considered asthmatics, that's when I just felt like I had to speak.
So what did the pediatrician say after?
Well, I went through quite a few pediatricians, to be honest. I wasn't very liked. I remember one particular pediatrician, we only saw her once, but I was telling her that I really felt that the asthma medication was making my daughter worse. Right. And she said, "You're a first-time mom. You're just worried. Don't worry about this. I've been doing this for 20 years. You just need to trust me. I'm the one with the medical degree." Yeah. And it really struck me because I believed her. And I sit back sometimes and I think, gosh, but I'm the mother. And I truly believe parents have an intuition. And they may not know the right answer, but they do know when something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I didn't listen to that. But I was very fortunate when we moved here to where we live now. There's our pediatrician. I ended up telling her, hey, I'm in school, I'm learning about holistic nutrition. I really feel there's something different and better out there. And I don't want to insult you because I know you have a medical degree and I know you're here to do no harm. Mm. But just please respect this is what I want to do. And she shut her door and she said, let's speak. Let's talk about it. Oh, she cool. had patients waiting in her waiting room for 45 minutes. And I help her with her children and she listens to me and we go back and forth. She plays devil's advocate. I play devil's advocate with her. And I'm so lucky that I have a pediatrician that says, you know what, listen to your gut.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Because my wife and I, we're pretty lucky as well on that matter. Because one of the mothers that we met at the PTA, she's the doctor as well. And, she said the vaccines, yes, she does. But the flu shot, she goes, she never gives to a kid. And then she brought up elderberries. And we started laughing because that's what we do. I'll go grab the organic, the freeze-dried elderberries. And with my mom, I just send that down to her, and she'll make a concoction for the kids. It's great. She'll use the honey for the kids. She'll put the good vodka for the adults. And then, we'll probably be starting that once in October.
Yeah.
But, it's the same thing. And it's
or even the essential oils, because I do the elderberry syrup too, and I usually start that when the kids go back to school. Okay. We call it witch's brew in our house.
Okay.
And but even the essential oils, they're oils to use as antibiotics. Okay. And I know that that's not a legal term, mm-hmm. but these essential oils do combat viruses and bacteria. And it's interesting that I have physicians contact me now because they've never heard of this stuff.
Right.
I have a few good friends that are physicians, and it boggles my mind. They go to school between 8 and 12 years, and they've never taken a nutrition class. But yet, as a nursing student, we take nutrition.
Okay. It is. I went to school down in Richmond, and you go down to MCV, the medical portion, and you can just unfortunately see the amount of how much pharmaceutical companies kind of dump into a lot of these colleges. Same thing with my dad. He's had both surgeries done on both feet, and he's on blood thinners. And thankfully, it took me about maybe a month to 2 months to convince him, but I finally got both of my parents doing yoga. So my dad, he walks around, he's as stiff as like a walking 2x4. It's like I like to joke about. But he's gotten so much better. But even with the blood thinners, his doctor says you can't eat, deep green leafy vegetables. And I'm like, isn't that telling you something? Let's kind of figure out how we can slowly add that back into your diet and kind of get you off. Because I think blood thinners, that's pretty much just rat poisoning in some things. But it's
and I'm definitely not against medication. I don't want to come across as I've had 2 kids, so medication helped. So I'm not going to turn away medication, but at the same time too, I think people really need to understand what got them there to begin with, to need to be taking medication. And medication is something that is synthetic. It's not real. So our bodies and our brain don't know how to process this. Okay. It basically is a big Band-Aid. So we have to use foods. We need to use herbs and essential oils to work with our body. They don't work against our body. And that's that is really frustrating. I know people on chemo or dialysis are told not to eat certain fruits and vegetables, and it just boggles my mind that they can then still take 7 to 8 different medications in the morning mm-hmm. with their cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. And yet there's, on all of these pharmaceutical medications, there's counterindications on all of these medications, but yet they're told you can take those, right, but don't eat the fruits and vegetables.
Right. Yeah, it's So tell me this: somebody listening right now would want to contact you, what would be kind of walk us through the initial steps, just like in a sense like a cold call, somebody calling you up saying they're interested in on how you can possibly help. I mean, what would be the next steps that you would recommend for that person, and how would you work with them? What would be the next steps working with you?
Well, once somebody contacts me, we always do a consult, and I like to meet with everybody in person.
Okay.
Because we just have to make sure that our chemistry matches, and I also want to know what their goals are. You can't go in there, of course, when I see somebody and they complain about a particular ailment, I want to fix it, and I want to fix everything.
Right.
But sometimes people don't want to do that. They just want to maybe work on one thing. So it's important for me to listen to their goals and then help them figure out how to get to that point to help these. Most of the adults that I work with want to either lose weight or get off of medication, but a lot of them too, which has just transpired in the last year and a half, it's not necessarily about food either. It's just about them wanting to find peace and happiness.
Okay.
And, that is another part of this whole holistic nutrition, because being healthy and happy is not about everything that you put in your mouth. It's about how we think.
Right.
And everybody has the answer. Everybody knows what they need to do, but they don't know how to go about doing it because of fear.
Okay.
So it's just me sitting there basically listening to them and saying, okay, let's go, let's do this. And once we decide that we're a good match for each other, then I usually will recommend them doing the DNA testing, because it's a cheat sheet for me.
Okay.
And that way they don't have to go and avoid all of these foods. And for weeks and weeks, we kind of get an answer within a month.
Right.
And we go from there. I also go in their homes. We do a workshop. I meet with them 2 to 3 times a month for about an hour each, each visit. And I go in their homes. I do what's called poisons in the pantry. So I go in their house and I point out every culprit we can possibly find. This usually takes about 2 to 3 hours because there's a lot of stuff in our house that we don't realize is not good for us. And then once I've kind of deflated all of their, happiness by them having to get rid of all this stuff, I take them shopping. And we learn how to grocery shop. We learn how to read labels. In the meantime, they're watching documentaries. I have piles of books and literature for them to read. And I take them to other workshops with other holistic nutritionists or meditation specialists, yoga gurus. It's not just about the food. And it's just one day at a time.
Really? Now, you say, 2 or 3 times a month. Once you get the DNA test back and you have more data on that person, do you kind of put together a worksheet or like a pamphlet or something, or guidelines in the sense that they follow? Or is it more of kind of laying out a plan for them and you guys just kind of checking in?
Everybody is different. I've worked with close to 100 different clients now, and not one has been the same.
Really?
Everybody's just so bio-individual. What works for you isn't going to work for me. And a lot of these clients have the same ailments, but they're still very different. They all have different culprits. They all have different goals. Usually we put together a plan. Once we start figuring out the culprits and we start weeding out all the bad and bringing in the good, I will teach them how to cook. We put together meal plans. I try my best never to take anything away from anybody. We don't follow diet plans. I don't believe in diets. We don't count calories. I count chemicals. It's really hard to explain what I do because everybody's different.
Right.
But usually it is, we kind of just look at the goals and we keep going towards those goals. We put together plans. And then towards about month 5, month 6 is when I start to kind of wean away and they kind of do their thing. And then, if I'm needed, they can contact me. Okay.
What would you say? Well, I'm just going to say for myself, because I know I'm probably gung-ho for about the first month, 2 or 3 months, and then I'll probably either get distracted or something like that. I mean, how would you would you recommend on kind of stay on track? I mean, for my kids, it's not a problem, I think, but for myself, I can find myself, hell, I'll hit that 7-Eleven for one of them Hostess cupcakes because I know I will not get caught.
Well, once I tell you what's in that Hostess cake,
Right.
You might not go back. And it is true. Parents are huge advocates for their children.
Right.
They will work endlessly to make sure that their children are healthy. But we're the ones that need to focus on ourselves.
Right.
Because it's just like, being in an airplane, you got to give yourself oxygen first before you help the person next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always emphasize to the parents or adults, you got to take care of yourself because no one's going to take care of you.
Right.
And I also don't believe in throwing too much at you at once.
Okay.
My shortest contract is 6 months.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I truly believe in baby steps. And that baby step could just be drinking more water this month. Mm-hmm. The baby step could be go to bed a half an hour earlier. The baby step could be just have one meal a week that doesn't have anything processed or animal byproduct. Okay. It's that little. And then towards the middle of our 6 months, that's when I introduce like all the supplements and the shakes and all that fun stuff. But you can't do it too quickly because that's why we fall off the wagon. Mm-hmm. Because we try to do too much at once and then we burn ourselves out.
Right.
And we also get resentful of the fact that we're still not eating what everybody else is eating at the Super Bowl party.
Right.
And it's just about finding balance. Mm-hmm. And, I know for myself, I did that. And I did that with my children. We went from eating McDonald's to mommy making tofu burgers. They were not happy with me.
Right. We
were probably the healthiest we had ever been, but mentally none of us were healthy and none of us were happy. Mm-hmm. And that I don't believe in either.
Okay.
I still eat junk. My kids still eat junk. But it's all about balance.
Right. Okay. Because I know even for myself, there was a time where I would use my Blend Tech for breakfast and lunch, and then I would eat whatever the heck I wanted for dinner, in a sense. And that was good. I gotta definitely get some recipes from you because I'm the type of person that just throw everything in there. It tastes horrible, but I'll just down it and be done with it. But
you gotta love what you're eating. You gotta love what you're doing. And I also am teaching people when they're making a meal, I'm teaching them what those foods are doing for them. Because I think sometimes if you're told, hey, I know with children, for instance, they're taught the food pyramid. Okay, well, you have to eat these greens, you have to eat this amount of servings of fruits, but they're not taught why. And so, if we're working with children or adults, or I'm working with children or adults, and I say, okay, I want you to incorporate berries. Why? Because they're full of antioxidants. These strawberries have seeds that are on the exterior, and these seeds end up gelatinizing in the body to help pull out the plaque and the heavy metals out of the liver. And so when people are making foods, they're having a connection with these foods. They're learning the science behind the foods so that you tend to like them more because it's doing something positive. And everything does have to taste good. If it tastes bad, you're not going to stick with it.
Mm-hmm. So what are your stance with probiotics? Do you use supplementation for that, or you just strictly, is that just food based?
It depends on how severe your gut damage is. All of us are suffering from some form of gut imbalance or some type of leaky gut syndrome. All of the chemicals and the pesticides, fungicides, and GMOs, and all of that fun stuff in our foods have created a lot of gut imbalance. So some people are more severe than others. That's another thing that this DNA shows. It will show the imbalances in the stomach. Yeah. You can also take it a step further. I do a saliva test that will help, and it's a 1 week series where you spit in a container, and it kind of gives us an idea of the gut flora. You can take that even further and see a naturopath, which they'll do a stool sample, and that's a lot of fun. Let me tell you, it's 5 days of pooping in a tube, but it gives the doctors and myself an idea of what parasites are brewing, what type of gut flora you have, right, and what you don't have. And so not only are we losing the good gut flora, but we're filling our stomachs with the bad flora. So probiotics are great, but we also need to focus on prebiotics Prebiotics are what are starting to build that strong muscle or gut flora. And those are in our fruits and vegetables. Those are in our greens and our grains and our fermented foods. Kombucha is finally coming around. This has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
Sourdough bread, this is a fermentation as well. These are foods that are really good for the gut flora. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in probiotics.
Probiotics. All right, I have to ask, what parasites?
Mm-hmm.
What are there good parasites and bad parasites?
There is good bacteria.
Okay.
I wouldn't call these good bacteria as parasites, but every single one of the clients, including myself, I'll talk about me. A couple of years ago, was breaking out really bad, and I just didn't understand it because I was, pretty much eating a vegan diet. I was exercising. I was drinking my smoothies and juices every day, and I just kept breaking out and breaking out. So I went to my naturopath. I was taking probiotics. I was taking probably 10 supplements a day. Just something wasn't right. And she looked at me after talking to me for about 3 hours, because that's what naturopaths do. They take time and really have the time to talk to you. And she said, I think you have a parasite. So did a saliva sample, did the whole stool sample, and sure enough, I had a parasite in my large intestine. To find out that has been in there for about 15 to 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And
God.
what I learned was, because I was and I had asked her, I said, but if I've had this parasite for so long, why is it just now causing an issue?
Right.
And she said, because you've been eating too clean, that you've been feeding the parasite. And I was floored, because I thought, how can anyone eat too healthy?
Yeah.
And so these parasites, they want this stuff. They want the good stuff. So, yeah.
Now I have to know for myself.
All the clients that I've worked with that, had these same symptoms, or, who were just curious.
Right.
They have had some form of parasites as well. We all do. We all have metals in our liver. We all have, we all have these fun bugs inside of our body, but we want to make sure to tackle them before they tackle us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was lucky though. I never had to see anything come out of me, because there are some horror stories out there, and I've had a few clients that had nice surprises when they used the bathroom.
I know. I've heard these stories before.
Yeah, and the best part is they send me the pictures.
Oh, Lord. Wow. So, oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to have to check into it.
I was insulted. Honestly, I was so mad that this thing was inside of me, because I had worked so hard, and I thought I was doing everything right. And, once I knew everything was out of my system, because I retested after 3 months.
Okay.
And it was gone. But I just was so relieved, because all this time it's been in there, just eating all the good food.
Yeah, you have to be a special type of person to prepare yourself for that answer. Because I know friends of mine that might hack themselves open trying to get this, or feeling so.
Yeah, and then the best part is there's dozens and dozens of different parasites out there, and they will finally target what parasite you have, and then of course thanks to Google, you go and you look at the pictures.
Right.
And you're like, what the hell? So I'm like laying there in bed going, oh my gosh, I've got this centipede in there.
You didn't name him, did you?
No,
Okay.
no. He wasn't privileged enough.
I've known some people who have done that as well.
No.
Oh my gosh. So, that's really... All right, so I definitely want to try out that DNA stuff. Because again, even for myself, I know diet is so important for myself, but just trying to go that extra step, unlearning about that. Because even with my kids, my son having chronic ear infections growing up, we started to get them back on making them juices as well. Now, their juices take a lot better than of course mine do. I mean, they won't even touch it. But I mean, it's crazy. You can see how sugar, your body just craves that sugar for it. And even I was so surprised because I can be sitting at lunch and I know I got my shake sitting in my cooler and I'm like, I don't want to drink that thing. I want to go have either McDonald's or Subway or Chipotle or something like that. But I was like, you know what? Just drink it. And if you're still hungry after that, then go eat it. But it's just amazing how I can just consume the juice. My urges are gone. I don't feel bloated. I can actually throw on my running shoes and I can go run. I don't feel heavy or nothing like that. But
That's
again,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like a mental thing. Just like once you get through that, I think, again, through, like you said, through just television and just life on how food is kind of sold to us, you really feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, it is. It is everywhere. I mean, I don't remember growing up and going to a gas station and having a Starbucks and bagels. And, I think at the most you would get bubble gum and maybe potato chips.
Right.
Everywhere you go, there's vending machines. In the schools, there's vending machines with candy bars and sodas. And I can't blame the parents and I can't blame the kids for wanting it because it's marketed for them.
Right.
Everywhere they go, watching television, you go to the movie theaters, and everywhere you go, there's this junk food. And it is highly addictive. There's a reason why it tastes good. There's chemicals in there that make it taste good. And the bright, fun colors attract, our children's attention. And sugar is more addicting than heroin. At a very young age, babies are given sugar water to calm them down. There's a reason, because it's full of endorphins and it calms us, and and we always go back for that. But to get back to your shakes and smoothies, we want them to taste good,
right?
Because if you do have any type of fear or anxiety of eating healthy and clean, then you're going to fall off the wagon. So you have to make it pleasurable. And I also have learned that you don't have to add every fruit and vegetable and supplement in one shake. We can space it out. We don't need everything at once.
Right. Because that's what I'm dumping into hemp fiber. Yeah. I'm doing flaxseed. What else?
Just one of those is enough. You don't need too much. No.
Tomatoes, carrots, kale, beets, and I'll just hit that thing. And I got maybe a quart of liquid that I got to put down. It's just like, but again, once it's done, you kind of give yourself a little check for that. And, once it's down, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
And everybody that I've worked with, let's say we're working with thyroid or, whatever ailment we're working with, the first thing that everybody notices is how they feel.
Right.
And within 3 to 4 days, just having, I never take away anything. So if they still want their coffee and bagel in the morning, sure. But my only thing for them is, okay, can we have 1 green juice a day? That's it. So still go and have your cheeseburger and fries. Have your soda, I don't care. But just do 1 green shake. And every single one of them will then look at that shake, drink it, and go, okay, well, maybe I'll have the burger, but not the fries. Because your cravings change.
Right.
Because when you're feeding your body doesn't have cravings anymore. We have cravings because we're having some form of imbalance.
Right.
So our brain is telling us to crave so that we can go find that food to fulfill us and fill that void. But when we crave salty or sweet, we don't go for celery or apples. We go for a Snickers or potato chips. But once you start feeding those cravings with real food, those cravings go away, and so does hunger. People kind of look at me and they think, well, how can you just have a shake for breakfast and not eat 3 or 4 hours later? Well, because the fiber content and the proteins in these shakes have completely filled my body.
Right.
My body isn't needing anything other than hydration at that point.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I was definitely not getting enough fiber. And then once I did that, I could feel a complete difference in energy levels and stuff like that. But even I remember reading how, going back to gut bacteria, how that may have more of a psychological role, because that could actually drive your cravings, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Yeah, most of these bacteria, these parasites, like I know with my parasite, it thrived off of sugar.
Okay.
And that was the one thing that I craved all the time.
Right.
But also taking it a step further, why did I crave sugar? Because I don't eat meat. It's very rare that I have these proteins, these animal-based proteins.
So right now you're 100%, you can vegan or vegetarian?
No, I can't say that. I mean, I probably have animal byproduct maybe 2-3 times a week. I only eat eggs and chicken every now and then. I don't do dairy. I don't do pork or beef or any of that. But I was doing the whole vegan thing. I truly believe that works for me psychologically.
Okay.
But physically, those plant-based proteins were not enough for me.
Okay.
And going to the naturopath and really spending time working with her, she agreed. Depending on your blood type too, certain foods aren't going to work for you, and certain foods, people, for instance, that are type A, blood type A, do better and are healthier on a vegan diet. Whereas if you're B plus or even B negative types, your bodies need animal protein.
Really?
Yeah, and these are just little things tidbits that could possibly help you. Do I necessarily believe in all of it? I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that when I have, egg whites with my spinach, I'm definitely fuller and have more energy, and I don't have the sugar cravings.
Okay.
These parasites, getting back to the parasites that thrive off of sugar, I was having smoothies every day. Well, in these smoothies, I would put dates and I would put apples and berries, which have sugar, which is good for you. These are good sugars, but these parasites still thrive off of the sugar. So for 3 months, I had to completely try to get all of those sugars out of my system. So I was doing all protein, all greens, and the cravings stopped because the parasites were dying and they couldn't thrive off of anything anymore because they didn't want to eat that stuff.
Now, are parasites and yeast, do they kind of work off the same thing?
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah,
did you have a headache? Or because I've known people who've cut sugar and damn, they got cranky for about a good week, 2 weeks.
I've never had the crankiness, but I definitely was getting headachy. I remember when I started my whole protocol, I had to take supplements, and a great supplement to take is ginger,
right?
Because it soothes the stomach, and then chlorella, which helps with the heavy metals. But she put me on a particular supplement that was extremely strong because I had to have a full stomach with it, and it helped kill the parasite. Within 3 to 4 days, I could start feeling the headachiness, and then on the 5th day, I remember waking up and my eyelids were completely swollen, and my hands and feet were so swollen I could barely move my rings. So I called her in a panic, and she said, "Oh no, this is good. This is what we want," because it was trying to get out of my system.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, I think that would be such a shock, I think, to people, just because it's, again, against everything that we've been taught or told coming up.
Yeah, especially because I'm looking at the bottle sheet, that I purchased, and it just has herbs in it. And I'm like, no, this cannot possibly kill a parasite. And, here I've been teaching this for 3.5-4 years, but still I'm stubborn. And, I still always go back to conventional medicine. Well, are you sure? I don't need an antibiotic. And she said, just be patient with it. And, within 3 months, that parasite was dead. 3
months. That's crazy. Because, I always even talk with my wife and some of my friends. I wish I had the Captain Crunch box from when I was eating that back in the early 80s and kind of compare the ingredients to what, to a box of Captain Crunch now, just to kind of get an idea.
Oh, yeah. We definitely back in, I'm an 80s child, and I remember eating Sour Patch Kids, and Fruity Pebbles was my breakfast of choice, and we definitely didn't have the food colorings or the high fructose corn syrup, the GMOs, the pesticides in the corn and the wheat, And ultimately, that is something that I learned for myself. That was my trigger. It was the yeast from the gluten.
Okay.
And this was what started the parasite problem. And you look at now, you read the labels, and you know, our box of cereal probably had 10 to 15 ingredients. Now we're talking about 20 to 30 different ingredients, and we can't pronounce any of them. You know, what's really crazy too is over the summer, our family took a trip to Europe, and I brought a box of Kraft mac and cheese because Kraft is made here in the U.S. But you go to a German grocery store and buy Kraft mac and cheese, which is made here in the U.S., and they have different ingredients.
Yep.
And it infuriates me that our children are put on a different standard, that our children can have the yellow food coloring and the GMOs and the MSGs, but over there in Europe, because they're very strict about the foods and the chemicals in their foods, they aren't exposed to that.
Yep. I remember my sister-in-law, she's from Germany, and even whenever she goes back, just kind of bring it, like just the gummy bears, and just seeing, like, again, the red dyes, the red 5, or the stuff that you get here that's not over there. But then even grocery stores over there, the foods, they seem like they're made to last maybe a week or so in some of these especially the produce. While in here, I mean, good, they can be there for they're built for definitely a longer period of time.
Yeah, everything, you know, from, you know, the inner aisles. So we've got our frozen and our fresh, but all the inner aisles are made to have a shelf life of at least a year.
Wow.
And you do go into these European grocery stores, and I remember we bought a pack of marshmallows, and 4 days later, they were already molding.
Really?
We would never have that here with our marshmallows, because their marshmallows were made with sugar and vanilla and egg whites. But, you know, I was looking at our marshmallows when I was doing a grocery store tour, and I think there were 17 ingredients in just one bag of marshmallows that could sit there probably for a year.
Because I just recently learned that on the ingredients, when they talk about sugar, they don't put the percentage.
No, they don't have to
anymore. And that's crazy.
Yeah, so how we can get around that is if whatever your first 5 ingredients are on that label, that's what that's the majority. Okay. So if you, let's say, get a box of cereal and the first ingredient is wheat, okay, and then the second ingredient is sugar, then you're just eating sugar and flour. Okay. You're just you put it back. Usually if you're buying a product, you want 5 ingredients or less.
Okay.
And you want your sweeteners to be at the very bottom of that label.
Okay. All right, cool. So I know right now you have the Facebook page. You said you're working on a website or a blog that you have now. What are you mostly focusing on the blog? Is it mostly recipes, experiences that you had with your clients? What is that blog? What are you mostly using that blog for?
The blog is I started it for my clients because I started to get really busy, and I felt guilty that I couldn't answer them every single day when I would get emails or text messages. Right. So I started to put together recipes that they could go and know that these recipes are clean. Okay. And then I do put little fun, facts. I put little tidbits in there, but one thing that I've noticed is everybody just wants to hear my story. And the experiences that I've had. And instead of repeating myself 1,000 times, now just in the last few months, I'm starting to kind of give them the story. And I'm doing a lot of volunteer work. I'm starting to work with some of the local schools. And that's
very cool.
Yeah, and that's where my passion has always been children. As much as my own drive me nuts, I love kids. Right. And I truly believe that we can help all the adults, but it's when the kids go home to their parents and say, "Hey, Mom, I had carrot juice today." That's when the parents are going to get on board. Okay. So we have to really focus on the kids because they're the ones that are going to go and teach everybody else. So I put together a whole bunch of workshops with some of the local schools, teaching these children about real food and clean eating and how to read labels and how to nourish their bodies. Now working with athletes too, a lot of our athletes drink Gatorade or Powerade, or they're using all sorts of topical ointments for their joint pain and their muscle pain. Well, what about getting back to coconut water and using essential oils or herbs to help these muscles, or meditation and yoga instead of going and forcing ourselves to hit the gym and hit the weights? Let's kind of just be still a little bit. So that's where I guess Live Life Pure is going. I don't know. It just kind of happens. I don't really put together a plan. It just kind of happens and I go with it.
It's really cool because just talking with you today, again, we spoke last year, and just hearing you now, I can definitely, just seeing a Facebook page as well, just seeing how much you've grown since last year, which is, I think that's really cool. Very cool on that. And that's great. You're definitely working with kids because, again, I've definitely we talked about last time, taking that to effect on some of the stuff that we're doing here. But I would definitely love to get some recipes because all these kids are just drinking. Like I said, I'm covering everything up with blueberries and strawberries right now, masking the flavor. But it's definitely cool. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, easiest places on Facebook?
Yeah, or I can be reached at livelifepure.247 at gmail.com. Sorry. I have so many addresses. I'm sorry.
Right.
But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, WordPress, Live Life Pure through WordPress. And everyone just kind of shoots me an email and we go from there.
Okay, cool. And I'll definitely put all those links at the bottom of this podcast so everyone listening can just click on that and get on board and just contact you with any questions. So I appreciate so much coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then I'd love to have you on again. Like I said, I'm going to take some of the information that I got from you today, process all this, try it out, and then I'll come back and we'll do a checkup and get some more information.
We'll get you some good shakes that don't
I don't mind the shakes. I just look at it. It's one of those things I have to do. I can't leave the house until I drink it. No. I put it down. I'm done.
Okay.
It's the kids that I don't mind. I don't mind torturing them. It's not fair. But anyway. So again, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.